All right. So I wanted to show a little bit of my progress from KDU and out here now in the working environment as a project manager. So even though I was a designer, my role kind of blended into project management, and it's mainly who's the best fit for the role. It doesn't have to be the designer. So if there is someone who has good management skills, you can have that person focus on it instead. And it is a lot of work, sometimes tedious work, but it is absolutely necessary to keep track of everything. So, for reference, I'm showing you my old Excel sheets for my final year project. So that's like an old Excel sheet, the old checklist. So it's like kind of messy, but yeah, that's how I kind of managed it at the time. So you can see like the must-haves, good to haves, nice to have. So stuff you learn lah. So I did apply it back then. Oh, and that is not like paper pog. So that's my final year project character. Yeah, so this is how I used to do the schedules. So the first month, your minimum viable product. Second month, good to have, and then the last month, polishing. Do make sure you have time to polish your stuff. And what I mean by polishing is not like don't add anything else. See if you can just optimize everything you already have. So the timeline you can see some kind of bleeds over the MVP and the good to have. And always remember that don't be afraid to cut down on your content if it's too much. So yeah, so that is how I kind of managed the project back then. Next slide. Okay, so coming to the projects that I've been handling here, I guess in the industry. So in context, this project is a visual novel project. So you would want to adjust your asset sheet based on what the client's need is also. So if they don't need so many details, you have to figure out what's important to the client. So how I did it is the submission dates are important, the comments are important, file names, timeline, description of the town. So it's visual novels are somewhat similar to linear media. So that's why timestamps are important, depending on where and when you want your sounds to play. Then you have your references, your comments, your feedbacks, and when you submit your work lah. So that's for that project. Okay, so this one may look a little bit more familiar with what I used to do. So in this project, it's a RPG project, and the focus is on the characters. So there's a lot of colors here, but I'll go through them briefly. What's important are the characters, how you do your naming conventions, make sure it's neat and tidy, make sure people know where and how to find your files. The reference videos, what I did is I recorded the characters animations and then I placed them in, and then I would put timestamps on where I think the sound should be and where the sounds should trigger. And this is something that I think game students would have an advantage over, or people who have played a lot of games, because when you implement the sounds, you know that the sounds have to be implemented through a certain method, whether it is through the animation or so on. Because otherwise, how you would do it in linear is just, oh, you just play the sound once and it's gone. But no, footsteps. So you know that each footstep is one variation. So if not, otherwise it would just be like a tuk 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 tuk. But instead you want it to be like tuk 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 or something like that, some sort of randomization. So audio notes is the description of sounds, revisions, looping. So all of these are details on what's important for your characters. The progress chart, what I did with that is to keep track of where each sound is located and who is in charge of that and what the status of the sound is like. So basically, it's starting from you record or you get information of the sound, you start crafting the sound, you will render the sound out, which means to export it so that you can use the sound on its own. You implement the sound and you do QC, or you check through the sound again. Always make sure that it's working as intended, and if it can't, see what you can do to compromise for that. Okay, so this is a different project, but the focus on this project is also on characters. So you can see I omitted the name, so it's more movement. So basically walking, jumping, attack 1, attack 2 kind of thing. So for this project, it's very similar to the slide previously, but as you can see, I kind of made it a lot neater, a lot less colors to look at. The point of that is different clients or different projects would have different requirements again. And sometimes when you do more projects or when you are doing these projects, you will realize that, oh, I don't actually need this column anymore. I don't need this, or it's neater to see it on a different sheet. So you will have to evolve your asset sheet. There's no like one for all way to do it. There's no right way to do it. There's always a better way to do things. So don't feel afraid to change it up as long as your team and people knows like how to read it and how to make sense of it. So briefly talking about this sheet, what's important was the status, the character name functions, the varieties. The video captures are still the same. I put in the link to the concept art there so that whoever's making the sound can have a visual idea of how their characters look like and like how they want the sound to be. So there's that. And then the description of the audio is there because it was easier for whoever's viewing this sheet to have an idea of how to make the sounds as well. And the priority list is always there lah. So like yeah, sounds you can live without because sometimes time is a thing. So you have to be careful of that lah. On this slide is more of a checklist. So from my old slide, I did also have a checklist. So I found I found out also it was a lot easier to keep track of things when you do have like an asset sheet and a checklist just to keep track of things. And that is how we recorded our progress for this project also. So as you can see, the submission date, which one is nice, which one is not. So if you have a lead, then you will report to them. Or if you want to discuss it as a team also, then yeah, please do so. Please like talk about how which sounds are nice, which sounds are not, or what assets are good and not. So you can also apply this to I think other streams, so like art and tech. The point is to make things neat and tidy lah. Asset sheets are also Google Sheets are also a very good. It's a good skill to learn lah, because there's also like a lot of neat tricks you can do, like how you freeze the column so that you can scroll up and down without losing track of the character's name, so on and so forth. So if you are doing a management role, take some time to pick up that skill. So the previous slide was a feedback list. So this is my checklist. So I was talking about the freeze frame. All the stuff on the left, you can kind of omit it. So the most important one is the status. So that kind of keeps track of what else you have left to do for your game lah. And yeah, that's kind of it. So that project we have like more documents, but to us it was easier to keep track of everything.
Great. So I know this next section is a little bit of a conundrum because most of you are probably seeing this for the first time. And this is basically our roles in the audio team. Now, if you take a look at all these roles, there is actually an internal hierarchy within even the team itself. And just to put the record straight for everyone is equally as important in the production. So I'm just going to run through very briefly from the top to bottom what each person's role is. So the music director basically has to take all the comments from the producers and the creators, and then they probably take this idea and make sure that the direction is right, make sure everything is clear. They translate whatever the producer says in their terms, and then put it in this format and idea that the team can understand. And he will convey this message to the project manager, and he has to make sure everybody in the team works towards this direction. The music director is basically the first and last set. Well, I mean, yeah, it is more like a workflow, but it is more like and then it's just he just has to make sure everything goes according to that thing. It's like the last line of defense. So the next thing is like the music director will definitely hand the idea to the music project manager first, and the project manager or the production manager would delegate it to two different departments, the music and the audio. They're both really separate departments, and the music department includes songwriters, composers. If the budget is more a bit, you can get an arranger, orchestrator, scoring people, and and then after that, if you need recording, so sometimes in OSTs you need like singers and you want certain live musicians, and that's where we get talents and the recording engineers in. And once all of that is settled, you have one music mix engineer mix everything, and it goes to the next line of things. Now, going to the audio side, we can split audio into three different categories. The sound design, or in film terms, we call that the hard effects. Basically stuff like, one-shot stingers, things that you can't make with real life sound, like, digital effects, like when you have robot sounds, transformer sounds, etc., etc. Those are categorized as hard effects. Foley are stuff that you can actually create using real life stuff. Like, for example, if you want a sound of a horse hooves moving, you take two coconut shells and you knock it on the table, and that basically makes hoof sounds. And if, let's say, you are going for maybe somebody getting their intestine ripped out, you probably want to take a tomato and squeeze it really hard and pull it, and it gives you that gory sound. So it's like Yeah, and the dialogue supervisor is basically in charge of in what we call in film we call it dubbing. In games we call it VO. Yeah, grabbing food with force is like really fun thing to do. We did a really strange movie before. It was X-rated, and when they were doing the deed, we had to take an old cucumber and stick our fingers in it. So that was pretty fun. But anyway, after all of that is done, we usually go down to an editor, and these editors usually clean stuff up. Gets rid of all the noise, syncs everything up to the film, and make everything sound crisp and nice. And then it goes to the mixer, which consolidates everything and makes sure everything is balanced throughout, especially the volume. So this is something, yeah. All of these things usually are handled by three different people. Usually for indie stuff, there's only 3 or 2 people handling this kind of stuff. So that's like depending on your budget. So this is towards a slightly more medium range budget. So continue on, people from the music department and audio department will come up with 2 different mixes each. And these mixes will go towards the bottom. If you see, like, at the bottom, there is 2 different segments. One is called the audio implementer, and the other one is for linear media. Right on the right-hand side, if you take a look at the full mix engineer and mastering engineer, those are more for film stuff. You see, I'll go into more detail, but for games, most of the time you have an audio implementer, and the audio implementer usually works with 2 objects. One is the programming software, and the second thing is the music audio implementation software. And so stuff like Fmod, Wwise, Cryware, implement there, create the triggers, put it into Unity or Unreal or RenPy or RPG Maker so that it triggers. That's for games. Now for film or any linear media stuff like TVCs or stuff, we will usually go through a full mix engineer first, and the mastering engineer would make sure that it's correct for maybe 5.1 and all the other stuff, which brings us to the next segment.